Okay, onko sulla kuvaus päällä? So, let's begin. Welcome to our summit. In Finnish it's called Valon Suomi 2025, uudistavaan yhteiskuntaan. In English it will be called the Finland of Light 2025 towards a regenerative society. So, actually I'm wearing this shirt of Valon Kesä, which Veli started this movement 5 years ago, kind of to change Finland, create a better society. And now maybe we're taking this movement to the next level, or make it more like intentional and focused with this event. So something about the background. You're keeping the time, right?
I'm keeping time.
So we have, I have maybe 20 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Should I stand there, by the way?
Yes, there if you're a bit more.
Okay, background. So, where to begin? I'm sure Marcus will talk about how the bioregionalism movement got started, but if we just talk about this background for this event, so well, in the bioregionalism movement, they talk about the collapse of this current civilization that is going to happen, and it's not something to be afraid of. Rather, we should take action and be ready on the inner level to, well, brace for the collapse, but more importantly to get ready to build a better world. Like Charles Eisenstein was talking about. He wrote a book called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. So that's what we are doing here. And for me, it has taken about maybe 13 years of preparation, from sustainable development, community education, and finding our inner hero, and walking the hero's journey, which we all need to do to be ready for the new world, basically. Because without this inner work, we cannot make anything sustainable, really. Whatever we try to improve or save, it's not going to be on a permanent basis, because it's still based on the old thinking. So the fundamental change here is our consciousness. But in this event, there was also talk about these communities, bringing communities together, collecting the tribe, gathering the tribe. So that's a very basic idea here, to bring people together from different traditions from different groups, different fields of work, to find our both inner connection and also what we can do together to start building the basis or foundation for the next level society. And yeah, what else can I say? Yeah, it's been quite challenging to actually find the people who would be ready for this. I've been trying to do this for a couple of times, maybe 1 or 2 years back, to bring people together in an event like this. And the time was just not right. People were not ready. But now that we got this a kind of support from this R3.0 conference, which is about bioregional regeneration. So now we have this kind of because this is it's called a confluence, this event from their side. It's and confluence means something like rivers coming together, different streams converging. So this is exactly what we are doing here, bringing different streams of work and consciousness together to create something beautiful. And so we will be talking about bioregions and regeneration soon, but this is just to introduce the event. Is there anything else about the background, purpose? Okay, so the purpose here is to...
You could say a little bit about the Institute as well and what its relation is to...
Yeah, we will have a separate session about the Institute.
Okay.
Yeah. So the purpose of this event is to just to bring us together, find each other, start building the network of regeneration for Finland and across the world, so that we can actually start creating something concrete, not just talk, and yeah, taking things forward and create the first steps towards that beautiful new world. Yeah. I think, how are we doing with time?
Well, you wanted 20 minutes, you've had 10.
10. Is there anything you'd like to ask about this event? Any comments?
Do you want to specify what is a bioregion?
Well, I'm going to do
He
that
will
now.
be talking about it. Yeah.
Well, maybe I can just come in and start doing my bit, and then questions might come out of that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Come on, Marcus.
So I can come and stand at the front, and I can be on camera. So the concept of the bioregion has come from the United States, and the key person behind that is Peter Berg. So Peter Berg was a hippie and headed over to San Francisco, like all hippies did, worked on the Summer of Love and kind of raised consciousness around alternatives, anti-materialistic as many hippies were. And he traveled around, he started to develop his own awareness that the environment and people's relation to it was more important, and social stuff wasn't as important. So he originally started off with a San Francisco mime troupe, and a radical group called the Diggers, who turned up and do protesty things and agitprop things. But in 1973, he went to a United Nations conference on the environment, And after that, he created the concept of bioregionism and started to describe it, how it related to water and land and other things. And he created an organization called Planet Drum. And Planet Drum still exists, and they basically carried out the ideas and vision he had, and that's quite interesting. At the same time, there is a consciousness that developed in sort of Washington State, and maybe a little bit Oregon, a little bit into Canada, a little bit down into Northern California, of Cascadia. So you have to know a little bit about the history of America, how it grew. So it basically grew after the beginning of the 19th century, and through the 19th century it started to expand with immigrants coming. And many of the immigrants that went to that part of the world were from a English-British background. So they were slightly different from the other parts of America, and they developed an idea that this is a, they didn't use the term New England, but they developed an idea that they had a common culture. But nevertheless, it was an invasive culture, and their relationship with the original or the indigenous culture as they saw it was something interesting, and out of that has developed this concept of Cascadia. So there's two aspects. Cascadia has the geomorphological, the landscape and the nature, and then the other aspect is the social aspect. So there's a reference back to the indigenous people who are living in the land, who are living there. So this is perhaps the archetypal bioregion. And that concept, this is what the R3 conference will talk about, is trying to get that idea spread to the rest of the world. And that's not so simple, because the rest of the world doesn't have the same relationship and history that created that bioregion. So I think in a very scientific way, and if you took all the humans away, you could easily say where the bioregions are. But once you bring people into the equation, then it starts to change as to how people define the edges. So here in Finland, we have the difficulty that we have a nation state, quite a strong concept of this is Finland. But that's not necessarily where the bioregion should be. And we don't really know how to resolve that. And we also don't have the indigenous people in quite the same relationship. We have the Sami people in the north, but they're not necessarily all in Finland, and they're not in the south. So what's our relationship? It kind of doesn't easily work in the same way it's working in Cascadia, or at least it's imagined to work in Cascadia. So this has a question about, well, what's the bioregion then? So Peter Berg himself had this concept of the watershed consciousness. If you thought of the watershed of where a river flows and all the tributaries, that would make a bioregion, and it would have commonality in terms of the way people lived on there, the way the nature responded on there, the way the nature interacted, and you could somehow define that narrow way. But we come here and we've said our bioregion is the taiga. That goes all the way across northern Russia. That's a huge area. So if that's our bioregion, how can we have the same kind of relationship? What relationship do we have with Kamchatka, or what do we have with Tomsk? You know, we've got a very limited relationship with there, even if I know a few people there. And here we have more of a chain of cultures that comes across, which you can see across the circumpolar region, the whole region.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah.
Our bioregion.
So that's nominally our bioregion. But there is another concept which has a different shape of bioregions, which is much smaller than that. So we could think in that way, and that goes back more to these watershed consciousnesses and smaller areas. So Finland itself, you can define one sort of coastal bioregion, which is where the Helsinki area is, and then there's another more Great Lakes region, which we are part of in the middle, and then you could say the northern Lapland, something else. So again, it's like, where do you, so you have here these different ways that you can split things, and you can think of these in a more bioregional way. The relationship between these different areas is also interesting. What's on the liminal, the border? How do we relate to those? To come back to the practicalities, what we want to do here is we want to think, well, okay, if we have these bioregions, so they're not defined by human population, they're defined by the way the natural world works. How do you alter the society that lives in those areas? I mean, my view is that the big mistake we made was the Neolithic revolution of farming. Really, we should not have farming, we should go back to foraging, and we should live sustainably in forests everywhere, and that would be perfect. But I might have that view, but the majority of the society doesn't have that view, and it would be a long process to do that. I don't say we couldn't get there, but as first steps, making everybody leave the cities and go and live in the forests is what Pol Pot did in Cambodia, and it didn't go very well. So I'm not really in favour of that. But I am in favour of starting to think that, well, that's the ideal way that we should be living, in balance with what can grow naturally in the area, and that it shouldn't be dominated by human agriculture, which in our case is based on fossil fuels. So when our fossil fuels go, as the transition movement has pointed out, well, how are you going to grow all those crops to feed all those people? How are you going to be different? So I've talked with Veli and Ali about this idea that maybe we should be kind of prefiguring and thinking about places that we can live. I've talked to Christoph Huck-Medeker, and he said, well, maybe we need bioresilience centres. So there's one in Joensuu, Nomad Town, that he and I worked on creating. We think we need about 5, or maybe one for each bioregion, that would start to make people think more consciously about how to live in that way. So that's one suggestion for practical movement. So I hope from what we do here that we'll have some kind of consciousness about where bioregions could exist. And then what do we do with these Great Lake areas? How do we relate to them? How do they move in that more bioregional direction? To go back to the confluences, the other confluences aren't random, they happen to be connected. The whole movement is supposed to come together to what they call congressing. So there's a proper congress between the other ones where we share wisdom, share ideas. So we've been talking with the people in Kenya, in the Great Lakes region, where they're doing the same thing. They're about the same stage as us. Some other areas are much more advanced. So Joe Brewer, who's in Colombia, he's done a lot of stuff there, and then in Cascadia as well. So the hope is that that's what we can do, is that we can learn off them, and we can have exchange of wisdom, and we can move in this consciousness. Like Ali, I've had the same difficulty that you try to explain this to people, and they don't really get it. I think you more get it, that's why you've come, but we've got to get that across with what practical steps do we take. And I think we can look and see that we're not the only people who've thought that. If you go back to John Maynard Keynes, he was very keen when he, this well-known economist, he talked about localizing and doing things locally. You can find things with Polanyi, Michel Polanyi is another economist, well-known economist, when he talked about the great transition, how we're monetizing everything in our society. But yet he was also very focused on kind of rural things and how could we bring those skills back and demonetize the things. So our relationships with each other shouldn't be based on only money and transactional things. It should be more communal, where there's a sharing spirit in there. So I think that's what we can start to bring when we know each other a little bit. Then we could say, well, what about this? How do we do that communally? So some of the talks will also be on that. Will Ruddick will talk about commitment pools, how it's sharing, and that's sharing is building a community. I don't think we do that well in Finland. I think historically we did. I think we had the Talcott culture, and the Talcott did that. And now I think the Talcott is lost a lot of that. Talcott is something that's done on the side instead of the main bit of the economy. But that's my view as an outsider, thinking that, oh, that looks interesting. Why aren't Finnish people doing lots of Talcotts for everything? I'd like Finnish modern Talcott perspectives to come in. There has been some of that. There was a Talcott for Finland with litter picking, National Litter Picking Day that had that kind of concept in it. Litter, trash, rubbish that's on the floor. So it was done as a Talcott thing. It wasn't done with people being paid. It was done that they celebrated it. So I think there are some traditions here, and of course we can borrow from other places. How am I doing for time?
You have half an hour.
Oh, that's very good. I could carry on talking. So I don't know what your experiences are with bioregionalism. You've heard the term before, or so? I'm going to ask you, as you nodded very enthusiastically, Becca. What's your understanding of it?
I have a very scientific understanding of it, I think, and it is, in essence, what you said, that there are different, almost macro ecosystems. And for example, during my master's in Finland, we studied different types of ecosystem-dominated regions. Like in Karelia, we have a lot of steppe forest the like the higher areas around the lake valleys, which are quite acidic. They have this humic matter in the water. It's characterized by certain ecosystem traits. But I'm familiar also with the cultures that have grown up in these type of. There is a culture to different ecosystems because of the way that people have lived in them for generations upon generations. So they don't teach us as much about that at universities, but I have become familiar with it because I have friends in the Sami culture that don't really think much about borders and like they just follow the culture that has grown up organically there.
I think it's called Paliskunta. I think that's the word for it. Yeah, well, I did mountain forestry as my master's in Bochum in Vienna, and there when we were doing the tropical forestry, and we talked about nature protection, then we talked much more about the forest peoples, and there were some interesting cases. So the Karen, they each have a spiritual tree that's their tree, and what's happened is the areas that they looked after, that they lived in, the trees have all been protected, and in other areas where under British concessions, sadly, and German forestry methods, they've come in and cut all the trees down. So now when they've said, well, we ought to protect these trees, they've forbidden some of the Karen people to go into these areas in order to protect the trees, because they've taken an American approach to nature protection, where they had great wildernesses and they were just declared a wilderness area. Let's remove the people from it to allow it to be wildernesses. And they haven't really understood the dynamic between the two, which you've just pointed out.
I don't know if I mentioned that I have a minor in law, environmental law, and that happened on a big scale. The Red Plus program by the UN it's a failure that we studied and lost.
Oh, you did it? Okay.
They messed it up so bad. They've been trying to protect forests across the planet. On a larger scale, they ended up rooting out the indigenous people that were living with what is essentially permaculture and the low impact lifestyle and moved them into cities to protect the forest so that they weren't living in the forest anymore, but they had a much higher impact and a lower quality of life in these urban centers. And it is, I think it's still going on, the Red Plus program. They're trying to salvage it, and there's just...
the Red and the Red Plus.
Yeah, in my opinion, it should be scrapped because it's a catastrophe.
I think often the UN is a catastrophe. They're dominated by too many lobbyists and too many urban perspectives. But that's the UN. To bring it back to Finland, we have to think about how do we get across to the people who are the decision makers what we need to do here to move back towards that bioregionism. And unfortunately, we have a very capitalist, money-dominated politic in this country. And so most people think about, well, does it make money? They don't think, is it sustainable? So if you go back to sort of, this is how I got into environmental stuff, was in the 90s. You had the Rio conference, and then it was all about sustainable development and sustainability. And now sustainability is somehow, sustainable development isn't just about ecological sustainability, it's about economic sustainability, and it's about profitability, and the ecological stuff is a back burner. So it seems to have been replaced with regeneration and resilience. So that was the other thing to talk about, was the concept of regeneration. So the general idea people have regeneration is we'll just restore it to the way it was, but that's not going to be possible. We cannot restore things to the way they are once we've damaged the planet. And in any case, evolution progresses. We've had, I don't know, 600 million years of evolution that we know about, and perhaps another 1,000 on top of that, 1,000 million years on top of that, of single-celled life. And we can't go back and make the same path again. We're now in a new path, in a new direction, and we've lost lots of species. So quite how that will manifest, we don't know, but we can move towards some kind of replacement and sometimes of alternative. And it's the same thing with the bioregions and the people's interaction. They can't go back to how we were living 300 years ago. It's not possible. We have to think about other ways. So here's lots of questions about what do we do? Do we abandon all the electro technology we've got, or do we integrate it somehow? Do we need to use other technologies? So I'm not giving a definite answer to that. I have my opinions on what can work and what can't, but so do other people. But the population that live there, we have to think how we move them into living in a more synergistic way. and that their concept has to be of this regeneration and then resilience. So the resilience is the ability to withstand shocks. So we are making some shocks. Some shocks are already there in the world, and to rebuild these communities and these places, it's natural resilience as well as societal resilience. So there's a lot of stuff I'm chucking at you. I think a lot of you know these concepts anyway. And then to bring that into bioregionalism, that's something that people are talking about it, but they haven't been so conscious about doing that. To my mind, what's happened with a lot of bioregionalism, it's a reaction to nation states, where people don't want the nation state and they're reacting against it and saying, well, we want to do things locally. And they're not always, they sometimes don't think about the environmental aspect, they're thinking of the human governance aspect, that they are in a system that's a representative democracy that's not representative anymore. And Sitra in Finland has said the same thing. They said our democracy is not fit for purpose. We need to change it because now everybody is educated. When you've got most of the population are going to, certainly completing school, but many going to university and coming out with degrees, you don't need to have the same kind of relationship you had in the past where the people governing had some kind of expertise, because now we're all experts to some level. We're all educated. We can all read in Finland and we can all reason to some level. We've been educated that way, but we're excluded from making the decisions. And that has to change as well. So it's a very radical thing, bioregionalism. It isn't just about, oh, we're going to live locally and look after the forest and the trees. It starts to question about how we're going to relate. And something that I don't think this has happened in Finland, but in other countries it's happened much more, and particularly New Zealand. There's been a conscious decision to start bringing in the landscape. So the forest or the trees or the animals start to have a voice in the political decision making. So that also could come in here. And how that could look in Finland, I don't know. I don't know, how does that look? Do you have to have a council that speaks for the trees? Or, because trees can't physically speak in a meeting, but you could think that could work in the same way we have advocacy groups for children that represent them. And we have Sami Council and the Sami government. There's no reason why we couldn't have a tree government, for example, or a lake government. So how would that look? How would it look if somebody could say, I say no for the trees? So I think that would be quite cool if you could have that, something like that. So we're in a position now where we can suggest those things, but we don't necessarily have the institutional environment to fully understand them. But it's coming. I think it will come much more with climate breakdown. So I think that's about all I've got to say at the moment, without waffling on and saying nothing meaningful.
I can add something,
Please.
Yeah, so
Step forward.
yeah, firstly about the bioregions. So one of the founders of this movement, I can't remember his name, but he's an American guy. There was a video interview with him about this bioregion thing, and interestingly, he thinks that, at least I got the impression that he thinks that the bioregions they're like living entities, they're whole systems, and also regeneration. In regeneration, we are kind of like designing a living system, but we do it in like partnership or even a shared consciousness with nature. So there's this idea of coevolution, and actually the purpose of regeneration is for everyone and everything to reach its highest potential, and we can only do that together. None of us can do it alone, so that's why we need each other. Yeah, so you mentioned the asking trees or something. So actually, yeah, this is what we have been like practicing with Sakari. He has this method of, he calls it kosminen keittiö, in which we actually ask this entity, like for example our association or the Spirit of Finland, what it wants to be or what is its purpose or whatever. So we can talk to these entities. It's just not a different kind of communication. And yeah, so it's true that we cannot regenerate, bring back things that were, and that's not very sensible either, or possible. And no, I'm not even sure if regeneration is the best word to describe this phenomenon, but anyway, the idea is to, like, if you think about a tree that grows from a seed, its purpose is just to become the fullest version that it can be. So that's the idea with regeneration. But yeah, the word is not very, I mean, the best possible. Actually, I wanted to share also, if we can use this flip chart. We can keep. Yeah, we have pens. I think we can keep it there. It doesn't matter. Okay, so let's make a circle here. It's not very round.
It's the Earth. It's a geoid.
Anyway, so it's a kind of map with 4 quadrants. We can also talk about 4 elements or the 4 directions, but so actually because regeneration or even sustainable development is often like it's divided into 4 different categories, but I just found out recently that these 4 things also relate to the 4 fundamental problems that were already identified by, also I've heard, by Karl Marx. And they're all about alienation. This is what is causing the current problems in the world. So it's a human thing. It's not a natural thing. It's a human thing. So Dr. Gabor Mate, he was talking about this these 4 things, and so these are the alienation from nature. We are not connected to nature anymore. There's alienation from other people. We have become individualists. There's alienation from our own self, our true self. We have become more like mental robots. And then there's the alienation from our purpose. We don't really know what life is about anymore. So these are the causes of all the world problems, according to Karl Marx. I can write them here, actually.
Marx did a lot more environmental stuff towards the end, and the social stuff was more predominant. I always blame Engels for that.
With regeneration, we can actually fix everything because we are coming back to connection. So let's go through this. We are going back to nature because we are part of nature. We are not separate from nature. Yeah, we just need to reconnect. Yeah. So this is kind of, I guess you could call it deep ecology, maybe. That we are not only like preventing damage to nature or taking care of nature, but we are actually become an integral part of nature. We are nature incarnate in these bodies. That means we should also live a natural life as much as possible, or organic. And collaborate with nature, even do things together. The social aspect. Maybe the big answer for this is to create communities, because in such environments we like naturally find each other, and like in settings like this, it's just natural not to stay separate from others, but be together. So communities are also like living entities. And some people talk about this. It's a Finnish thing from Kalevala. It's called Sampo. Sampo is like the kind of light body which individuals can have, but it also communities can have. When energies flow in total harmony, it can create this kind of positive spiral vortex. So we become like a collective being in a way. Okay, then self. In regeneration, we transcend the pure thinking mind. We find our true essence. And it happens through the heart. It's not brain thing, it's a heart. More like heart is the portal. And one of the easiest way to connect yourself is meditation. Yeah, it's a whole new world in there, not out there. In here, actually, in us. And purpose this. Oh, by the way, I should write this. So this is ecological regeneration. Here we have. Okay, this can be the same. What is people? People, social. Here we can put psycho-spiritual regeneration. And with purpose, we can talk about cultural, economic. So our purpose relates to our place, our role in this human collective? What is our calling to do, to be?
I would say human nature collective. Our purpose also is within nature. It's not only just a human one.
What do you mean? Can you?
Well, you've written
elaborate?
cultural economic.
Yeah.
But economy, the word itself, comes from economicus, which is the household management. But the concept of the household isn't limited to a building, it's limited to the environment that we live in. So environment has similar roots. So our purpose isn't only to think about human society and human culture, it's to think of a human nature culture together. There's something that you're hinting at here about, like, as we've become alienated, this is all about alienation, is we're alienated from reading the natural world. So when people are more connected with the natural world, there's books, fiction books do this, like Taka the Otter is one. The person is living closer and closer to the wild animals. They're living in the wild. And some people live more in the wild than in the people who do a lot of guiding, for example, outdoor guiding. So then we start to recognize and read the nature, read how it feels. So I start to do this more when I'm spending more time and I learn the trees and the plants and what their natural cycles are and how they grow and when they die, when you can harvest them, when you can eat from them. So that process changes. I become more aware of how it feels. How does the nature feel? I can read it more. Whereas other people who are very locked in their boxes and not looking at nature, never go outside, they can't read it. They can't tell if it's happy or sad or sick or well. So I think that my culture changes as I'm in that nature more. It's not just a human relational thing. It's a nature-human relational thing. That's me.
Yeah,
and I think other people have spoken about similar things as well.
And all these things are connected. For me, when I had lost the connection to self, I found it from nature. And then from nature, I started to, from the nature connection, the self connection got stronger, and then the purpose starts to come up. So it's like all feeding each other.
Very much. I agree. I think it is.
I had when I was in England last June, I started having a very intense relationship with oaks, and almost like, communicating with them, or at least allowing them to invite me and approach them, and to feel something very special in connection, specifically with oaks, not all trees, but oaks. And then there's, in the UK, in the Jewish history, the oak was the sacred tree, and it's a very strong part of the kind of the British shamanistic history, human oak relation.
It's very much in the culture. It's the tree of England. Yeah. It's a tree that King Charles hid in. It's a tree that Robin Hood supposedly lived in. There's not coincidences why those trees were picked as oak trees.
And it's interesting that in the Finnish calendar mythology, the word tree is also oak.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Although oak is not a very typical Finnish tree.
Yeah. I mean,
nowadays, because now it's called era in the climate.
We're getting close to time, by the way. We have 5 minutes.
Okay. Now, anything else about this topics, or shall we close this session? All right, I think time to stop. Thank you. Let's have a break of, let's say, 15 minutes.